My, oh my, oh my. A bit of a rough weekend, obviously, for the stable, but a great day training, and puts me in a bit of a tough spot. I want to be optimistic about what I saw today, but obviously a little depressed over what took place. I'm going to focus on the good, and we're going to go through some of the horses that were very, very good today in training. Obviously, if you watch the drone feed, you know that it was very windy, very, very windy. And I don't think Curtis and I were so focused on how warm it was going to be that we forgot to look at the wind. And we're lucky that Curtis's drone was able to do what he did. Truthfully speaking, I know a couple of times throughout the mile I looked and the drone was struggling quite a bit. You'll see some shots where it looped over in behind us. It just couldn't catch us. And, that speaks to exactly how windy it was. A couple of times I didn't even speak into my microphone because I know you can't hear me. I could barely hear myself. So it took a lot of the energy out of a lot of horses. A lot of the horses that were okay looked poor today. A lot of the horses that were pretty good looked good today. And even the horses we know are really good were pretty good today. There was really only a couple of horses that were tremendous. I have 18 horses I like here. 5 made mistakes, 6 made mistakes I wanted to talk about specifically. And then I'm going to give you a little injury report also on 11 horses. 11 horses. Right off the top, obviously, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about from the start and heard me say it was a tough weekend, we lost one of our best horses this weekend, Effusive. Effusive, we turned him out in the field, and unfortunately I went to pick him up from the field and his leg was broke. So it was a very depressing and very, very upsetting situation, as you can imagine, for myself and the stable people. Very, very tough to grasp that, understand that, and certainly to get over that. It's not something I'm going to get over anytime soon, but at the same time, it is something that happened, and I wanted to make a big video about it, and I wanted to, have a big write-up about it. But at the end of the day, the saddest cliche of all is that's horse racing. These are big, strong animals, big, tough, durable animals, but from time to time you get a real good look at how fragile they really are. And Effusive meant a lot to me. He meant a lot to the people of the barn. He certainly meant a lot to our clients that owned him. This was probably the best bred horse, definitely on the property, if not the region, training very, very well for us, and we had very high hopes for him. And absolutely one of the most freakish accidents, in every literal sense of the word, you could ever find. I personally walked that horse out to the field yesterday, turned him out, watched him trot off and play, and then I had told the caretaker that I jog him when I was done going with the 2 or 3 I had to go with, and I come back off the track, and there was 2 people standing in front of the paddock waving me over, and Effusive had broke his leg. So just a horrible, horrible day yesterday. A catastrophic injury to a very, very nice horse, and a horse that won't be forgotten, and very, very sad, but today was training day. So with that out of the way, we're going to touch on some of the positive things that took place today. As I said, we're going to go through 18 horses I thought trained very, very well. We're going to go through 6 that made mistakes, but I'm going to tell you why. We're going to go through 11 horses that were scratched today for various reasons, none of them serious. And then we're going to go through all the horses for you, all the barns, as we usually do. So, in reference to this week, what else took place? Well, I went to Ohio. We raced Oso Pine. We raced Yes. We raced West 52nd. For the most part, they raced well. Oso Pine was a little flat now. He was a little flat and trotted his first start of the year, 157 last quarter and 29 seconds to finish 6th. He was a beaten 6th with a lot of mucus in his throat afterwards. He's down in Ohio now where there's lots of green grass. I told Jason just maybe throw him out, give him a few days on the grass. He's picked up on his feed now, looks great. He's eating really well. Obviously, he wasn't 100% the other day. That goes without saying. And I was explaining this to you guys, our clients. Sometimes the 3-year-olds don't come back as good as you hoped. But we already know Osopine come back good. His qualifier was awesome. His training leading up to their race the other day was very, very good. Just really, really impressive. And was a little flat in the mile. Not the end of the world. He'll bounce back, especially when we got to look at his mucus and the mucus in the scope, and then in turn drew the blood on him. His liver count was up. His white count was up. The horse was sick. So he'll bounce back in no time at all. Two of the horses that went very, very good. Yes was flying on the end of the mile. And now I'm biased because he's our horse. But when I looked at both divisions, the way the horses raced, I thought Yes raced as well as anybody. Left out of the 9 hole, dropped in the 3 hole, ended up shuffled the 4th, ended up shuffled to almost last along the rail in the last turn, flying at the wire, raced very, very good. And his line, not only does it not encapsulate the whole mile, it's wrong. They have him charted 6 by 2 at the head of the lane. He wasn't 2 lengths back at the head of the lane. He was quite a ways back. And I thought the horse raced very, very, very well. West 52nd, you can see I drove him conservative. We tried to qualify him with no hobbles. That didn't work. We qualified him with hobbles on that were too tight. That looked bad. We schooled him. He was pretty good. I was a little concerned going in. Is this horse going to get it all put together in time? I ended up 3rd. He get jammed up a little bit. He was trotting hard on the end of the looked. I didn't even pull the earplugs. I just put the whip away and let him shoot through the wire. He looked really, really good. High hopes for both of these horses in the final. I thought Yes, probably, I thought trotted one of the best miles in either division, and West 52nd looked awesome also. Twinsburg, you'll note, is no longer with us. Twinsburg was sold last week. To Ron Burke's stable. They raced her last night. She finished 6th. They went 151. We decided we have an offer on the table for the filly. I had reached out to a couple of agents and put together an offer on the table for the filly, one that I thought was very fair, one that was subject to how she raced the other night. She looked good racing last night. She looked really good racing her first start, last quarter in 26-2. Pretty impressive mile. But can you extrapolate that? Does that mean she can pace in 51, 52 right away? I wasn't certain. And the offer was for a fair amount of money. And it ended up being good for the owner. It ended up being good for us. It was just a good deal all around, I think, for everybody. And one that we made. So Twinsburg's left. She's now with Ron Burke, finished 6th last night, but they went in 51. I didn't see her charted line. I didn't even see her race. I was just listening to Kirby tell me, or Jason tell me about it on the phone. I think we did pretty good on the deal. So Twinsburg being sold was a necessity. And for those of you who have been in a cave or not paying attention, Lawmaker was sold, and he is actually headed to Sweden. A bit of a sordid affair of what took place and how it unfolded and how it transpired. A learning experience for me, a learning experience for our clients. First time I've sold a horse in Europe for any considerable amount of money, so it was obviously new to me. Again, just the money we were offered was just too much to turn down, and I didn't go out and buy a Maserati or anything, but it definitely helps. And the one thing I tried to tell everybody at the end of the day was, yes, it's great if our horses make money, purse money. It's great if, we do well at the track, but we have to make sure that every revenue stream is attended to, and the sale of horses, when the sale makes sense, is vitally important. If we were offered a less money than that, we probably would have turned it down. I mean, Lawmaker meant everything to the stable, meant everything to me and us, and definitely my wife, my family, and TheStable.ca in general. And the fact that we sold them clearly means that it was a fair amount of money that we had to take. So selling wise, we had a good week at the stable, I suppose. A lot of horses' shares were soaked up, which is always good. Very happy with the way the horses raced this week, how they trained. Road Tripper made a little bit of a break, which was upsetting. We're going to have to get that looked at. I think he touched his jack. He had a little bruise in his foot, and we changed his shoeing, and I'm not so sure. Maybe he just helped him in one area and took away in another. I think maybe he was interfering a little bit more. Kevin and I talked about it. We're going to talk about it a little more. Formulate a plan for Road Tripper. Just a Tad, where'd he come from? Just a Tad, very, very impressive. Ever since he started racing, just, You know, I was on pins and needles. I didn't know if he'd be good. You know, do we get some lines on him and put him in the sale? We'll talk about that in a minute. You know, do we, you know, what do we do with him? And I just kept him together. He was second, fourth. Then he won. The other night, I'm like the rail at Mohawk, like the worst possible situation for just a tad. He raced great. Now, in truth, he was going to be fifth, and the guys in third and fourth hooked wheels halfway down the lane. It was Bob McClure and darn it, Bob McClure was coming through and hooked Mike Vanderkamp's wheel. And as I was going by them, I said, "Hey, thanks, guys." I just kept going. He ended up third, but if he wasn't running in and out of gear in the last turn a little bit, I think I win. I'm very close anyway. Just a Tad is really turning into the kind of the horse we saw train down at 2, isn't he? I mean, if you had told me at 3 that Just a Tad would be beat by friggin' Biggin, I would tell you you were crazy. I have to go for a drive around the block. Amy put Adeline in the car with me because she was a little restless and wouldn't have a nap. So she goes to sleep when we drive around, so I'm gonna go for a little spin with my daughter. Anyway, Just a Tad was really tremendous since we started him. Raced great the other night. Has really turned into the horse we expected him to be. As I said, you'd never think at 2 that friggin' Biggin would beat him, but friggin' Biggin's been bouncing around Mohawk for 4 or 5 starts. Got a little more of that speed built into him already, and Just a Tad does not. So the only problem is we have Time Tulo who's coming up, so I think Time Tulo is going to have to race against Just a Tad, and Just a Tad's learning. Time Tulo's already been there. He qualified tremendous the other day. That horse looked good. Probably Scott Young will drive Time Tulo, and we'll stick with Just a Tad in the maiden. Also, Screaming Hawk made a little break the other day. We got to get him back on track. A number of horses schooled and trained very well. Maintenance Man was a little bit flat, as I said in the qualifying report. He's got some work to do. You know, everybody's waiting to see when Maintenance Man's going to race, and as I said, there's no point in racing him until he can pace 54. He's got 40,000 made, 3 lifetime wins. He's going to have to pace 53, 54 his first start. So let's get this guy under control before we go just dumping him in to go just to say we're racing him. He's going to need at least a schooler or 2 more, and I know that's probably not going to sit well with a lot of our clients, but it won't sit nearly as bad as a 7th place finish in the non-winners of 2 or 3. I can assure you of that. So there's that, and what else do we got? We got a baby crying, I know that. We have, who else schooled? Timo Houdini was great qualifying. A couple of horses notable that are getting very close. Sunshine's Finest trained in 2-2 last quarter in 28. Stonebridge Simba trained in 2-1. Ivanka trained in 2-3. Dancehall Babe was going a mile in 2-1 and made a break. Not a big deal. We're just tinkering with some shoes with her. What else do we got? Ooh, White Tiger is getting close. I'm going to train him in 2-2 on Thursday. Getting very close. So we had a lot go on this week. Some really bad news, but some really good news too. We're going to be back in a minute, and I'm going to give you my top 18 and talk about 6 more. I'm going to try and get the baby from stopping to cry. I do everything, don't I? I'll be back in just a minute with your list.